Good evening, students. Today we are going to discuss about addiction. Addiction. So addiction is what's the meaning of addiction? So addiction means we are addicting someone. That is called as addiction. For examples, we are following some habits. We cannot leave that habits. That is called as addiction. So simply we can say that what's the meaning of addiction means being given up to some habits like a drug, alcohol, tobacco, or etc. etc. Due to that one become physically, physiologically, and psychologically dependent upon the same. Clear? So like that. So many people are addicting to so many things like alcohol, tobacco, or all drug, or etc. etc. In this chapter, we are going to discuss about the three things only. For example, one particular person, a person who cannot resist the habit of drug or alcohol, etc., etc., due to become physically, physiologically, or psychically dependent upon the same is called as an addict. A particular person who cannot resist the habit of drug or alcohol or tobacco or any other things. Due to that one, becoming a physically or psychologically dependent upon the same, which is called as a addict. Addiction is a chronic and progressive, sometimes fatal disorder with both genetic and environmental roots. The addiction, medically, the addictions are classified into the three types. What are they means? Drug addiction, which is also known as a drug abuse. The second one is a tobacco addiction. Third one is a alcohol addiction. We will discuss one by one. The three kind of addictions are commonly, the human beings are addicted the three kinds of things like a drug, tobacco, and alcohol. The first one is a drug addiction, which is also known as a drug abuse. What's the meaning of drug abuse? Means taking a drugs for a purpose other than clinical use. Because the drug is initially we are using the drug which is used for the, which is discovered for the medicine purpose, which is also in olden days, which is also used for the medicine purpose. Nowadays also we are using the drugs, but if you are taking that low quantity, which will be act as a medicine. If you are acting, if you are taking a high quantity, it becomes a harmful one. It will becomes, it causes so many unwanted things. It affects that nerve system or etc etc. So drug abuse means that taking a drugs for the purpose of another than the clinical use in amount, concentration, or frequently that impair physiological or psychological function of the body. So when we have to take a drug means without valid medical prescription. The drug intake without valid medical prescription for non-medical purposes for obtaining the pleasure or euphoria in amount of strength, manner, or frequently that damages the physical and mental functioning of an individual. So if you are consuming that more quantity of drug, what will happen? Damages the physically and mental functioning of a individual one. Generally, the drugs are temporarily provides pleasure or intoxication or a intoxication. Generally, the drug abusers are likely to take a drug again and again because that person is addicted to the drugs. So that abusers likely to take a drug again and again. The drugs are a habit forming again and again. So automatically it becomes a habit one. They alter the perception behavior. Once that particular person is consuming the drug means it changes that person's behavior also. The drugs obtained without valid medical prescription commonly through legal channels from the antisocial elements. The drug obtained without valid medical prescription, the commonly through the legal channels from the antisocial elements. What are the cases of drug abuse? Are addictive drugs? Mostly the cases of drug abuse are addictive or abusable drugs are classified as 3. What are they? Prescription. Before that one, you should know what is the meaning of natural drugs. Natural drugs are ones which are obtained from the natural objectives like a plant and animals, which is called as a natural drugs. Example, opium. That is an important one, kindly note it. OPIUM, opium. That synthetic drugs means which is prepared chemically because the drug is available in the two forms. Means that drugs is naturally available. That is called as a natural drugs. Otherwise, natural drugs means that from the plant we can take it. That is called as a natural drugs. For example, opium. And synthetic drugs are prepared synthetically, chemically, which is called as a synthetic drugs. For example, amphetamine, aspirin, those are the example of synthetic drugs. It may ask in your NEET exam, what are the examples of synthetic drugs, aspirin, like that. The next one is based on that availability. Based on the availability, the drugs are majorly classified into the 3 types. First one is prescription drugs. Second one is over-the-counter drugs. Third one is illustrate. We will discuss one by one. The first one is prescription drugs. Prescription drugs means the name itself having the answer. That prescription drugs are taken only the prescription of qualified physician. for the purpose of to cure the particular disease or a pain or etc etc. So based on the qualified prescription, based on the qualified physician's prescription, we can take the drug that is called as a prescription drugs. Example, morphine and valium. Morphine and valium, those are example of a prescription drugs. The second one is a OTT drugs, over the counter OTC drugs. Here the prescription is not required for the sale because they are treating minor elements like a cold, cough, allergy, loose motions, fevers, etc. etc. For example, in the COVID time, the most of the paracetamol tablet is hugely sold in high quantity because maximum people are suffered from the headache and cold like that, body pain or etc. etc. So at that time the paracetamol is sold. So nowadays also we are, for example, normal fever or allergy or loose motion means directly we are taking the drugs. We are getting the drugs from the tablet. We are taking the tablets from the medical. That is not advisable. Although even the common fever or common cold also we have to get that, we have to take a tablet based on the physician prescription. But nowadays we are taking like a paracetamol, aspirin, Coldrin. Those are the some examples of OTC drugs. The third one is illicit drugs. Illicit drugs are not prepared any licensed factory. Illicit drugs are not prepared any licensed factory or are not sold through regular trade channels. They are manufactured and sold illegally. That is called as illicit drugs. So illicit drugs are not licensed. Without licensing, that drugs prepared and also sold without any license. That is called as illicit drugs. The true things are comes under the availability. The third one is based on the legal definition as per narcotic drugs, based on narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances or NTP Act 1985. The addictive drugs are two types. The addictive drugs are two types. What are they means? Narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. First one, narcotic. Narcotic means the drug depresses the central nervous system. The drug depresses the central nervous systems, kills the pain, and induce the sleep. When we are feel us too tired, otherwise we have a body pain, at that time we can take a narcotics drugs. So for example, which induces the sleep also, for example, opium and its derivatives. Opium and its derivatives, which is called as a narcotics. Opium, that that name of the drug, which is a most important. In example, mostly any one of the questions surely comes from the addiction side. The name of the drugs you should know. So opium is the example for the narcotics drugs and its derivatives. Heroin and cocoa leaves, those are also important narcotics. The next one is psychotropic drugs. Psychotropic drugs are mood altering drugs. That is also asked in a previous Neet exam. Mood altering drugs. Mood altering drugs means example LSD. Example LSD and amphetamines and LSD. LSD means allergic acid diethylmethylene. That is called as a LSD. So LSD and amphetamines are example for the psychotropic drugs. The next one is based on the effect. based on the effect. Drugs are classified into the three types. First one is the antidepressants and stimulants and hallucinogenics. So we will discuss one by one. First one is the antidepressant drugs. Antidepressant drugs. For example, sedatives and hypnotics. Hypnotics. Those are the antidepressant drugs, which is used to formulates which overcome the mental irritability. The sleep-inducing drugs, which is also called as a hypnotic. The sleep-inducing drugs also called as a hypnotic drugs. The hypnotic drugs is also example of a antidepressant drugs. For example, ehinomate drug, furazepam drug. The second one is a tranquilizers. These are also antidepressant drugs with calming and smoothing effect. Which is called as anti-anxiety drugs. Which reduces the mental tension. That anti-anxiety drugs reduces the mental tension. The third one is opiate. Third one is opiate or opioid narcotics. Opiate or opioid narcotics. So opiate narcotics are suppress the brain activity and relieve pains. Opioid narcotics drugs suppresses the brain activity and relieve the pain. So the drugs are popularly known as painkillers. So painkillers, opioid means a painkiller. Kindly note it, ma. Opioid is a painkiller drugs. They also have a sedative and astringent effect. Sedative and astringent effect. That opioid narcotics also used for the cough relief for the treatment of vomiting and diarrhea, because that opioids are painkillers. But that same opioids which is used for relief the cough and the treatment of vomiting and diarrhea. Clear? That opioid narcotics are briefly called as opioids. 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 Those are the three types of antidepressant drugs. Here, the opium is important one. The so many times that opium is example for the so many drugs. For example, just now I told, which is example for the natural drugs. And the opium also comes under the opioids. So you should know what's the meaning of opium. Opium means the air-dried milky latex, which is obtained by the initiating the unripe capsules. Capsules means the fruits. So that opiums are milky latex air-dried one, which is obtained from the fruits of white poppy plant. Fruits of white poppy plants. So opiums are obtained from the fruits. That question may ask. Papaver somniferum. Papaver somniferum family. That poppy plants are comes under the Papaver somniferum. Family is a Pfefferfaceae. The opiums are obtained from the family of Pfefferfaceae. The next one is stimulants. Just now I told based on the effects, the drugs are classified into the three types. First one is the antidepressant. That antidepressants only called as a sedative, tranquilizers, and painkillers. The three things we discussed. The second type of drugs based on the effects means the stimulants. Third only calacunts. The second one we are going to discuss is stimulants. Stimulants. Stimulants means that temporarily stimulate the nerve system, make a person more wakeful. So the stimulants are drugs which is stimulates the nerve system and makes a person more alert, I mean wakeful and active one. So when you are taking that stimulants are drugs. The stimulants do not cause any physiological dependent because no withdrawal symptoms appear in physiological depends. What are the stimulants means? The stimulants include caffeine, cocaine, crack, betel, and amphetamines. Here that amphetamines comes under the synthetic stimulants because that the stimulants are classified into the two types. One is a natural stimulants, another one is a synthetic stimulants. That amphetamine only comes under the synthetic stimulants, remaining that coffee, cocaine, crack, and betel nut. Those are the example of a natural stimulants. Natural stimulants. The third one is the third type, the based on the effects, the third type of drug is a hallucinogens, which is also called as a psychotic genic drugs, which is also called as a psychotic genic drugs. Psychotogenic drugs. Psychotogenic drugs. Psychotogenic drugs are induce the behavior abnormalities, which is induce the behavior abnormalities. Abnormalities means the changing the thoughts, feelings, and perceptions without any actual sensory stimulants. Example is the LSD, fine cyclidine. Those are the few examples of stimulants. That phycotogenic drugs are classified into the two types. What are they means? A natural one, another one is a synthetic one. So lysergic diethylamide, shortly called as a LSD, and mescaline and psilocybin hemp products. Those are the few examples of a natural psychotogenic drugs. And another one is a synthetic psychotogenic drugs are PCP, penicillin, piperidine, and methylene dioxymethamphetamine, shortly called as a MDMA. Those two, PCP and MDMA, is an example for the synthetic psychotogenic drugs. Here LSD is the important drugs. LSD means lysergic acid diethylamide, which is a crystalline amidated alkaloid, which is derived from the ergot, existing of a fruiting body of a fungus. Those LSD is obtained from the fungus, fruiting body of fungus. That is important one. Is somewhat dry topic only. That's all about the stimulants. So stimulants, that's all about the psychotogenic drugs. The next one is what are the reasons for drug abuse? What are the reasons for drug abuse means so many reasons. So many reasons the drug will be abused by the particular persons. The drug influences the physiological, mental, and psychological development. What are the various reasons for drug abuse means experimentation. Some school children's, school students or college students, for example, smoking habit is there. A drug, they are taking the drug means if you are taking the drug, what will happen? How we can feel it? Like that, they will think like that. So in the experiment orientation, they will take a drug. That is called as the experimentation. The next one is a family setup. That elders, the particular person's elders, father or maybe a grandfather or any one of the our brother, that person's brother may regularly taking that drug. At that time, while we are visualizing the regularly, at that time he will take. That is called as a family setup. And stress, due to some stress condition. Nowadays, the stress present in everywhere, in teaching line or a business line or maybe students. The stress is present in everywhere. Present means, according to my point, we are making the stress. So stress is also making the reasons to take a drug abuse. And over frustration and depression. Over frustration and depression. To avoid that one, the people are taking the drug. That unsupportive family structures. Unsupportive family supports supporters. Unsupportive family structures also makes some frustration or stress, which also cause the take a drug abuse. So what are the stages in drug abuse or drug addiction means intake the drug, the intake of addictive drug of a few times of intervals does not make a person's addict to the drugs. Generally, the 5 stages are recognized for a person to become the addict. What are they? The first one is experimental use. Just now I told experimental use means the taking a drug of curiosity 1 to 2 times under the group, under the underage, at underage, due to the curiosity. So to some people, curiosity means they have interest to know the new things like that. Due to the curiosity, that is called as experimental use. Curiosity makes a drug abuse. The second one is recreational use. The use of drugs out of wrong notion. It gives a pleasure, intoxication, or euphoria, which is called as a recreational use. The third one is a situational use. The third stage is a situational use. Situation means intake of drugs more than few times due to the being company of drug abusers. For example, if you are taking or your friend is taking a drug means sometimes 1 or 2 times you may took a drug. So frequently 3rd time or 4th time while you are going to your friend. So your friend is taking drug means automatically to give a company purpose, automatically you can take drugs. Otherwise, due to the compulsion of your friend, you may take a drug. Compulsion of other persons, which is called as a situational use. The fourth one is a compulsive use. Compulsive means a regular intake of drugs. Last stage is a dependence. Dependence means after an interval of regular intake, a person becomes a drug dependent and cannot do the drugs, cannot do without the drugs. That particular person must take drugs regularly. Then only he can able to do the regular work. Then only he becomes a normal one. If he is not taking or she is not taking the drug means he cannot to do the particular task. So that they are fixed in their mind. We must take a drug today. Clear. That case is called as a dependence. They cannot do without the drug. Cannot to do anything without the drug. That cases are called as a dependence. Those are the 5 stages. The next one is effective of a drug abuse. So effective is also called as a symptoms of a drug abuse. Effective means symptoms are effective means it changes the behavior. It changes the behavior. Behavior means addiction shows restless behavior, violence, because it affects the central nervous system. At that time, we don't know what we are doing. So it affects the central nervous system. So it stimulates the violence, interest in work, committed to duty and self-confidence are lost. Work interest, committed to duty and self-confidence, those things will be lost. It shows in their behavior. Body coordination, that neural and neuromuscular junctions are affected. If you are regularly taking a drugs means automatically neural and neuromuscular junctions will be affected. As a result, coordination of body parts, working of nerves and muscular systems are influenced. So automatically that body organs won't support to you. The next one is impaired or digestions. Addictions have not much interest to eating proper the food, because it won't make interest to take a food. Addiction disturbs the secretion of digestion enzyme. Digestion enzyme affect the drugs if you take regularly. Therefore, what will happen? The digestion is impaired, which is also affected. Vomiting also. Disturbed digestive and nervous system leads to the frequent vomiting. And damage of liver and kidney. Drugs, alcohol, tobacco affect the liver, kidney, and they become involved in the metabolism and the elimination of their products. This is not their function normally while you are taking drug regularly. So they therefore become the damaged. The damaged liver undergoes the cirrhosis, and which is also disturbed to the respiratory system. Respiratory systems are irregularly, which makes the irregular breathing. Because the addictive substances on the respiratory center of brain. The disturbance may lead to the respiratory arrest and sexual dysfunctions. Insufficiency develop of reproductive systems leads to the impotency. The drugs also causes the impotency. Abnormal babies, that all drug, alcohol, tobacco addict mothers are liable to give birth to abnormal babies. And the accident also in addicted cases. For example, if you are taking a high concentration of drugs, automatically we cannot control our brain. So the traffic, industrial accidents may occur due to the drugs and alcoholism. So those are some important effects of taking drugs. The next one is what are the withdrawal symptoms means depressed mood, anxiety, and restlessness, irritability, curving. Those are the withdrawal symptoms of drugs. And what are the other some other symptoms apart from this means excessive sweating. Regularly, if you are taking the drugs or alcohol means excessive sweating, vomiting. Those are the other symptoms of drug. The next one is de-addiction. De-addiction means it is a treatment of drug habitation and curbing for the abused drugs. That various steps of treatment will be available. What are they means? Pharmacotherapy, health registration, psychological treatment. Those are the re-addiction, psychological treatment and prevention of relapse means re-addiction. That re-addiction centers also available. That addiction centers also important question. For example, TT Ranganathan Clinical Research Foundation, Madras. TT Ranganathan Research Foundation, Madras. These are re-addiction center. Apart from Chennai and New Jyoti clinics, those are the re-addiction, drug re-addiction centers. The next one is tobacco addiction. Tobacco addiction. So tobacco is a legal use everywhere in the world. It causes for a more deaths than all other psychoactive substances combined. The tobacco causes a very harmful effects to the human beings. Tobacco is the dried and curved leaves of Nicotiana tobacco. That is important question. That tobacco is dried curved leaves of a Nicotiana tobacco with Nicotiana rustica. With Nicotiana rustica. That tobacco makes a harmful substances, makes a harmful effect to the human beings. Then ingredients of a tobacco and their effects. What are the ingredients means? Carbon monoxide, nitrosamines, nicotine, tar, catechol, phenyl, and cresol. Those are the some gaseous ingredients. For example, what are the effects of that ingredients means? First one, carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxides cause a carboxyhemoglobins. It forms a carboxyhemoglobins. So oxygen transport level will be reduced. And nitrosamine. Nitrosamine is a carcinogen. Nitrosamine is a carcinogen. Means you know very well it can able to cause a cancers. Makes a tumor formation in human beings. Nicotamine. Nicotamine is a addictive of chemicals. Neuroendocrine stimulant. Neuroendocrine stimulant. It nicotine affect the neurons, nerve systems, and catechol. Catechol also carcinogen, can cause the tumor in human beings. And phenyl and cerol, those are the irradiant and carcinogens. Irritant means it makes some irritation and also can cause some tumors in human being. And polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons, those are also carcinogens. So mostly that's why if you are seeing that ad or in tobacco selling like as cigarettes or etc., they mention that where tobacco causes a cancer or just injuries to the health. It can able to cause many things. Most probably it causes tumors, because it arrests the normal mitotic functions of cells. Next one, what are the harmful effects of tobacco? What are the harmful effects of tobacco? What are the harmful effects of tobacco means that regular intake of nicotine through the tobacco, because the nicotine is present in the nicotine is the ingredients of tobacco. That nicotine through the tobacco leads to the coronary diseases, heart failure, atherosclerosis. Those are the important diseases. That disease name, you should keep it in your memory. You should remember it because that may ask it. Atherosclerosis, heart failure, coronary diseases, and oculation. Tobacco leads to the male infertility. Continuously, if you are taking that tobacco, means it causes a male infertility. In pregnant woman, nicotine causes the decreased fetal growth and development. That mostly that in village side, mostly that females also taking the tobacco. If a pregnant lady take the tobacco, it decreases the fetal growth and development. Tobacco addiction oftenly leads the gastric and duodenal ulcers. It makes ulcers also. The tobacco habitation is a expensive effect. Expensive habit. It causes staining of teeth and fingers and making breath also unpleasant. Some people say if you are seeing that regularly tobacco taking patients, if you are seeing that teeth means some stains are present like yellowish in color due to the effect of tobacco. The tobacco also affect the respiratory tracts, swelling, etc., etc. If regularly, if you are taking the tobacco, means it reduces the immunity. It reduces the immunity. It leads to the premature wrinkling. Premature wrinkling. That if you are taking that regularly tobacco, the swelling of respiratory tracts. Swelling of respiratory tracts, which leads the chronic bronchitis or chronic obstructive airways diseases. Chronic obstructive airways diseases, shortly called as a COAD. Those are some harmful effects of tobacco. The next one is the alcohol addiction. Next one is the alcohol addiction. Regular consumption of alcohol, either in low concentration, like a beer or wine or etc., etc. So any form of alcohol. So regular consumption of alcohol, either in low concentration. We can take any form of alcohol at low concentration or a high concentration. High concentration means a brandy, whiskey, rum, gin, etc., etc. So that question also may be asked in NEET. So low concentration of alcohol is present in the beer and wine. Low concentration of alcohol is present in the beer and wine. That high percentage concentration of alcohol is present in the brandy, whiskey, rum, gin, and vodka, which having the high alcohol percentage, which causes the dependent on alcohol, which is called alcoholism. So alcoholism is a addiction. So alcoholism is a addiction. Chronic overindulgence and depends on the alcohol drinks, which is often associated with the deficient behavior. That behavior is also changed due to the alcoholism and drug. A person's addicted to the alcoholic drinks, which is called alcoholic. Note it, ma. A person addicted to the alcoholic drinks is called as a alcoholic. Alcohol is a chemically ethyl alcohol or ethanol. Alcohol is chemically known as a ethyl alcohol or ethanol. That is important to note it. Ethyl alcohol or a ethanol is known as a alcohol. How the development of drinking habit means the drinking habits due to the elders, if elders or friends or maybe a family structures, if taking that alcohol regularly means that habits also we may follow. That over frustration and loneliness and stress and relief from a pain. Those are the important other reasons for the development of alcohol drinking habit. So BAC is important one that may ask in question. BAC means blood alcohol concentration. Blood alcohol concentration. In Motor Vehicle Act 1988 defines the drunken persons. Motor Vehicle Act 1988, the drunken persons as one whose blood alcoholism concentration exceeds 30 mg percentage. So the 30 mg percentage BAC appears 50 kg persons after an hour taking a drink of 30 ml of distilled liquor. Distilled liquor, that is called as a BAC. If you are taking that alcohol and drug, if you are taking that alcohol and drug simultaneously, it is causes so many effects. When that alcohol and are interacted with the drug, for example, alcohol is interacted with the alcohol. If you are taking that alcohol with the aspirin tablets, means increase the changes of damage in the gastric mucosa. Gastric mucosa. So when that some people are they are taking that drugs along with the alcohol, at that time is cause so many effects. For example, when you are taking that alcohol with aspirin, one that increases the chances of damage on the gastric mucosa. And similarly, while you are taking that alcohol with along with the Valium, at that time it causes a dramatically increased the sedative effect. Sedative effect. And next one, the short-term effect of alcoholism. Next one, short-term effect of alcoholism. Short-term effect means euphoria. Euphoria means it is a very small dose. Alcohol brings about a euphoria. Overcome that hesitation and to improve the social communication, and anxiety and worry disappear. This is short term, that anxiety, that some tension, clear, that is called as anxiety. That worry also, if you are drinking that alcohol means that worry also, it gives a temporary relief. That is called as short term effect of alcoholism. And pain, that the feeling of pain also replaced by the type of detachment of towards it. It is a dangerous in case of person suffering from the angina. And breathing, excessive intake of alcohol causes a showing down of breathing. At times it leads to complete stoppage. The next, blood pressure. Small dose of alcohol reduces the blood pressure. but moderate drinking increase it. But moderate drinking increase the blood pressures. Hypoglycemia also effect of alcoholism. Alcohol reduces the gluconeogenesis. In the period between 6 to 36 hours of intake of alcohol, that blood comes to have a lesser amount of glucose. So functioning of vital organs is affected. Those are the some effect of alcoholism. Then the drinking and driving, that is, you know very well, that is a very dangerous one. While drinking and driving, do not together, as the alcohol makes the drivers inadequate and careless. Alcohol makes the careless driving and taking the unwanted risk. Drunken drivers lose their alertness, so it causes a accident. There is impairment of coordination of various body parts like eyes, ears, head, or etc. etc. So at that time also it may cause accidents. Field and clarity of vision are reduced. Power of accommodation is affected. That is called as a tunnel vision. Important one, tunnel vision means a narrow field of vision and low accommodation, which gives a blurred image. So that's why we must avoid the drunken drive. The drinking should be avoided. The drunken drive also must be avoided to avoid the accidents. The next one is the long-term effects of. Just now we discussed about the short-term effects of alcoholism. Next one is the long-term effects. Long-term effects means it affects the skin. It causes the some abnormalities in the skin. The next one is the brain and nerve disorders. Alcohol depresses the central nerve system. So CNS is affected by the regular alcoholism. Prolonged alcohol abuse also affect the brain and the nerve function. So surely it affect the brain and the nerve function. This is a long-term effects. The liver is a very important organ. All organs are important. Liver is also most important organ, responsible for metabolizing the alcohol from the blood. So that liver is also affects when heavy drinking, continuous drinking, which affects the liver. And the heart and the blood circulation also affected. Digestive systems also affected while you are drinking the large quantity of alcohol. What are the long-term effects of alcoholism? Means that so many things we already discussed. Fetal alcohol syndromes, that is called as a FAS. FAS. Fetal alcoholic syndrome is called as a FAS. The drinking during the pregnancy passes both aldehyde and alcohol into fetus, which gives results a number of development of defects in the fetus, which is called as a FAS, fetal alcohol syndromes. Small brain, mental retardation, cardiac defects, poorly formed concave, smooth teeth with smooth teeth. Those are the symptoms of a FAS. That alcohol is also caused the reproductive system. reproductive systems. And de-addiction. And de-addiction. So de-addiction means alcohol becomes both psychological and physiological effects. So withdrawal symptoms are a quiet appearance. So we must admit the patient to the re-addiction centers. So and psychotherapy means psychotherapy or counseling is a very important. AA means alcohol anonymous. So continuous counseling we must give to the alcohol abusers. AA is an international voluntary organization of a former addicts, which provides the group of supports to addicts during the de-addiction. So AA means alcohol anonymous. The patients also given disulfiram or a carbamide, which causes violent reactions if alcohol is taken. That phenomena is called a aversion treatment. So we can admit in the re-addiction centers also. So that's all about the de-addiction. That's all about the addictions. So what are the topics we covered? What are the topics we covered in the human health and disease? Human health and disease means there's so many things are important. We discussed the first one is the diseases. First we discussed about the health. Health. So in health already I gave a definition for strengthened mental and physical well-being, that is called as a health. And mental health also we discussed, and we discussed about the common diseases and symptoms. Common diseases and symptoms we discussed, and Robert Koch postulate is important one. And acute disease, the types of disease also we discussed. And acute disease are classified into the two types. First one is a communicative disease. Now I am giving the summary of human health and disease. Communicative disease and non-communicative disease. Communicative disease are called as a infectious disease, which is caused by the pathogens of fungus, bacteria, protozoa, etc. And non-communicative disease. Non-communicative disease that is called as a non-infectious diseases. Allergy, cancers, addictions, mental disorders, those are called as a non-communicable diseases. Communicable diseases means disease caused by the pathogens, or AIDS also comes under the non-contagious diseases. The next one is diseases caused by the hereditary. For example, through the mutation or chromosomal aberrations, we can get a disease that is called as a hereditary diseases. And the disease is also caused by the environmental factors. And constitutive agents. Disease constitutive agents, that thing also we discussed. And how the diseases are transmitted, how the pathogens are transmitted from one to another person, that things also we discussed. The way of pathogens cause the diseases. And we discussed about the vaccine and the immunization schedule. And we discussed about so many common diseases like yellow fever, chikungunya, common cold, smallpox, or etc. etc. So many things, so many diseases, cholera, rabies, and we discussed under the topics of bacterial diseases, viral diseases, protozoan diseases, helminthic diseases, so many things we discussed. After that, we discussed about the vaccines, vaccination schedules, and we discussed the immune system. Immune systems. In immune system, we discussed about the accrual immunity and the natural immunity. The topics comes under the types of immune systems. Types of immune systems. After that, we discussed about the autoimmune disorders, immunoglobulins, antigens and their properties, and antigen antibody interactions. Antigen antibody interactions, immune systems, autoimmune diseases and autoimmune diseases. Immunization. And finally, we discussed about the addiction. In addiction topics, we discussed about the tobacco, alcohol, and drug addictions. Those are the topics we discussed in the, we discussed the topics under the human health and disease chapters. This is a very big chapter, somewhat dry only. It will be, that is those topics are, that chapter is a very important chapters. Also, the chapters will be useful to our life also. So tomorrow we will meet in a new chapter. Thank you, students. That human health and disease chapter is over. Thank you, students. Today class is over.